Hello and welcome to Off Track, the lockdown series. This evening I'm going to be chatting to an ex-driver who's probably been one of the busiest people during this period of lockdown, 29 Ian Higgins. Ian, thank you for joining us this evening. Been very busy, a very busy man.
Yeah, very busy man. Not had time to get my hair cut yet, Jonathan.
No.
But no, I better give that back to the missus. Don't want people to get the wrong idea. To be honest, you've got to make the best of it, haven't you, really? I've been stuck at home. I've got elderly parents and Dennis isn't always in the best of health, so can't afford to risk it. So it gave me a chance to crack on with 15 years worth of DIY, etc.
It's been brilliant. I mean, for those people who aren't necessarily on your Facebook, every day you've done like a lockdown diary of what you've done, and it's been like huge projects you've undertaken. You've not just mowed the grass.
No, I've done quite a lot, to be honest. But one of the things that I regret from my racing days is I've never kept loads of photo albums and things like that. But with Facebook now, it's so easy. You can like sort an album out, and like even now, 6 years, something pops up and you go, oh God, yeah, 6 years ago. So I decided once I started doing it, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it almost like a bit of a blog type thing. And the number of people have said to me, oh, keep doing it. So that's how it's gone, really. No,
it's very interesting, very interesting. Anyway, let's talk about stock cars. We'll start with stock cars. So you started your career back in 1982 in a Frankie Wayman Senior hire car. So where did the initial interest come from, and did you enjoy it from the outset?
We've been spectators for quite a long time. I actually used to be the water boy for Alex McDade, who was 29 before me. And my dad, Dennis, was the Northern scribe for Stock Car magazine. Yeah. So basically, Frank was building a new low slung super duper car, and we ended up going to the Wayman farm for him to do a photo project on it, basically. And that's how we got to know Frank. And I'd always wanted to race, my parents wouldn't let me do minis or anything like that. So for my 17th birthday, they bought me a going away in an hire car. First meeting was Aycliffe, loved it. Somehow off the back managed to qualify for the final. So absolutely loved it. Second and third meetings were Hartlepool's, which I hated. In all honesty, I could have given up then, but we're at Hartlepool and I'd come off after the heat or something, and Frank had come across everything all right, and I went, don't like it, I'm scared, to be honest. They're coming past me like I'm stood still. So he said, well, you're going back out, your old man's paid good money for this, blah. Literally strapped me in the car and almost followed me out onto the track. And I went out and, sort of cracked on and, enjoyed it. So from then, after the initial nerves, etc., it was just something I wanted to do. Yeah,
brilliant. It's quite interesting that you were nervous about it, after the first race. Do you know what I mean? Sort of the first meeting, but then you carried on, which is brilliant. Yeah. I think it's fair to say that the Wayman family are instrumental in Formula One stock cars. So how important were they in your Formula One career?
Oh, in the early days, we couldn't have done it without old man Frank. We had no garage. Mum and dad's business was nursing homes and rest homes. So you couldn't really be firing up a V8 Chevy out the back of a nursing home. Half your residents had dropped down dead. So in all honesty, we couldn't have done it without Frank. It was a two-way thing. We paid him. But basically, even like young Frank, back then, he used to wash my car off after the weekend. We used to go up to the farm. I had every Wednesday off work, and Dennis did as well. And my mechanic back then, Rick, was unemployed. And we used to go up to the farm every Wednesday up to Silsden from York, work on the car, get everything done. And then Frank used to transport it and, do everything that way.
Yeah, so it was a brilliant helping spot.
Oh yeah, without him, we wouldn't have been able to race. There's no two ways about it.
Okay. So when you were racing, I'm not sure at what point this happened, but the nickname Captain Chaos, where did that come from?
Yeah, well, my first car, which was the ex-McDade car, I had a picture of Captain Beaky. I've got a bit of a prominent, but yeah, you as well, Jonathan.
That's quite right.
I've got a bit of a prominent feature. So we had Captain Beaky on the side of the car, and it actually came about. It was a Sheffield meeting. I can't remember when it was, but it was early in the season, 83, I think, or possibly 84, and a particularly destructive Sheffield. Well, for me anyway. Old man Wayman was like, "Come on, we better go and shovel this all up again and everything." Anyway, by the time we got to the farm on the Wednesday, somebody had crossed out the Beaky and written chaos. So young Frank it could have possibly been then, or old man Wayman, but yeah, it came from the Waymans basically.
And was it something you thought this is something to kind of play on and sort of use to become a bit of a character?
Well, not initially. It was just the way I drove, and the car was just such a big, heavy car. You couldn't slow it down when you got to the corners, and if you kept your foot down too hard, it just. But very early on in my career, my dad said to me, "Do not be one of these drivers that pulls over." He said, "I hate drivers that pull over." And I said, "Yeah, but what about the damage?" He went, "Don't you worry about that, son. I'll pay for that." So. That was it. I mean, I remember when I had the McDade car, there was a Rochdale, and we were going around as best we could pretty quick, I thought. And there's a bang, and I look in the mirror and it's Andy Stott, so I put my foot down a bit harder, bang again, and just managed to hold it. Third time, bang, all of a sudden I'm like, "Oh, where am I? What am I?" And there's like wires here, literally at the front of the roll cage. And I'm through the fence, go by the Hornets Bend. Anyway, after the race, Andy Stott came across and said, "Look, Ian," he said, "I gave you 2 warnings." He said, "If you'd have seen what was in my mirror," he said, "I had no choice." Once again, the car was shoveled off and repaired, and but that was just how it was back then.
Absolutely. So you've already kind of referenced it a little bit, but you had a reputation as being a hard racer. So was that a conscious choice, or was that just how naturally you drove?
It was difficult because I've been watching the likes of Frank Willie, Dave Mellor, Smithy, all these people from being a kid, and then all of a sudden you're out there racing with them. And at first, it's like I used to look in the mirror and see Smithy coming, for instance, and I'd move over and watch him go past in awe, and and that's when Dennis sort of had a go at me. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, if I stick to inside, we'll get a load of damage." And he's like, "Sod the damage." So from then, basically, I did class myself as a fairly hard but fair driver. The way I used to measure it was if my goggles came down, they were having it back, which wasn't so bad at the start of the season. But at the end of the year, when you've had the goggles on for a year, it only took a little tap and they dropped down. So at the back end of the year, we got a bit worse. But no, it's at the end of the day, it's a hard game in stock cars, and it's not a case of I'm big, this, that, the other, but you give as good as you get, and that was always my sort of saying, really. I don't get mad, I don't forget, but I do get even.
Yeah, so. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Quite a few drivers that I've spoken to have said that if you race hard and fair, it does earn the respect of the drivers around them, and it also almost makes it a bit easier to race because you're not getting battered from pillar to post week in, week out. So, yeah, absolutely.
I think a lot of drivers knew if you came past me fair and square, then they weren't going to get it back. I mean, I remember Lundy saying to me once, he said, "I hate racing against you, Ian." He said, "Because I'll be lining you up for 2 laps." He said, "And lap 3, you'll take a totally different line to what you've been doing for 2 laps." He said, "You're just a nightmare to pass." But that's, I was never a brilliant driver. I think car setup let us down quite a bit. I had a reasonable ability. I always felt I could drive, which when I got onto a different formula, I could mix it with the best people. But I struggle a little bit in the ones with the car setup. Just time. We didn't have time to do the car. I was busy. So.
Yeah. Okay, so you've mentioned a few drivers there, but driver rivalries are a fundamental part of stock car racing. So, did you have many rivalries with the drivers at the time? In your height of your career?
I had spats. I wouldn't say major rivalries. I had spats with quite a few. Barry Heath comes to mind. Me and him had a bit of a do. Joe Joplin had a bit of a do with Tappy. I suppose one of the, both Frank Wayne Senior and Junior. I had big dues with them. But I think almost the longest running one, I suppose, would have been with Lundy. We had a bit to do in 1985 where I took him out of the British drivers at Rochdale, or 84 or something. Not intentionally, just that's how I was at the time. He sort of never forgot it, always gave me a bit of a hard time when he come past. And then one day we're just minding our own business up at Aycliffe. I'm flying around, I'm second in the Grand National, and next thing I'm up to the roll cage and in the wires, and it's like, what's all that about? So basically, I took my bat home. I had to go at him, and then I had to go at George Braithwaite, and we had a bit of a spat, went on for a while. We sort of resolved it in the '88 World Final when I borrowed his car, and we were talking about things afterwards. And I just said to him, John, why did you bury me at that Aycliffe? And he said, Ian, I thought you were winning. He said, I didn't realise Ian Smith was half a lap ahead. He said, and it would have been my first 69. It would have been my first maximum. So he said, I literally threw it at you. Oh, you don't have to tell me. But like I said to you, if you'd have told me that 10 years ago, John, we wouldn't have had all this grief. But I didn't really have rivalries. You know, I used to enjoy racing with certain drivers. Rob Cowley, I loved racing with Rob Cowley and a few others, but no real rivalries like some of them have now. You know, one of the problems was I sort of got branded as a Team Wayman member, so to speak, which to me was unfair because I bury Frank as much as I bury anybody else. You know, was it the '99 World Final that Murray won? I was accused of taking Lundy out. I had his fans throwing beer bottles at me and all sorts. Yeah, believe it or not. But, you know, I spoke to John in the chip shop afterwards and said, do you think I took you out, John? And he went, no. And then when you watch the video, what it was is John was coming up on me. Ray Williams spun, and I had to throw it sideways to miss him. And John threw it as well. And John's back wheel caught my inside front bumper, which turned him right. So, but your fans don't see it that way.
No.
Man, and I took out John. So, yeah.
To be fair, I had forgotten that. I do remember a little bit about that, but not obviously I guess what happened in the pits afterwards. Didn't know anything about that at all. So
yeah, it's happened to me twice, believe it or not. You know, don't get me wrong, I love the F1s and I love the fans, but when I started racing Rebels and I raced at Coventry, I got a load of abuse in the pits. You know, what you're doing in them pebbles, this, that, and the other. But, you know, it's the way of the world. I got thick, skinny, don't bother me.
Okay, so my next question was about the 1988 season. So you won the crew semi-final, and then you got fourth in the world at Hednesford, but it wasn't in your car. You'd mentioned it was John's car. So how did that come about, especially if you'd been sticking each other in the fence for the past 10 years?
Well, basically, what it boiled down to, back then we raced every week. You know, the week now I think you have a week off before the World Final, don't you? But I think it was we were racing at Sheffield on the Sunday or Monday, and as usual, coming out by the pitch gate, back axle out, nerf rail off, this, that, the other, shovel it off in bits. We got Brian Evans booked in to re-sign right it for the World Final because I was on pole. So we wanted, you know. When I was a kid and I went to like the World Finals and they all came out with the greased tyres and like Cronny with his new paint job and stuff. So the World Final was always something that I felt some effort should go into. But as it happened, we were that busy trying to repair the car. And then the Hednesford that year was a 2-dayer. It was a Saturday-Sunday World Final. And I couldn't get there on a Saturday. We were still repairing the car. We got there Sunday morning and there was practice. We fired the car up, took it off the bus and it just stopped dead. And basically what happened in the accident at Sheffield, we had like the distributor was a Magneto back then. It was a really big, tall thing. And as I hit the fence post and come to a stop, it had bent it and actually bent the shaft. So it had run until we got there and then it just sheared and stopped. So basically, old man Wayman offered me his spare car. And John, you know, got to say, brilliant sportsman, like, because we didn't particularly get on or anything, came across and said, look, there's a Michelle car there if you want to use it. And at the time, you know, John was the man who was going to turn down the chance of racing Lundy's Shale car. So it was like, yeah, we'll use John's car, which was all well and good because we were then rushing. We missed the Grand Parade on the back of the wagon and all this. We were rushing around putting numbers on the car. I sat in the car, suddenly realised I couldn't reach the steering properly. And just as we're sort of getting everything ready, one of the London's mechanics comes running across, nicks the mirror out of it. It's like, what? He goes, oh, yeah, it's just broken. So I'm sat there in outside, oh, no, it's pole position, final, in a car I'd never driven, couldn't reach, and no mirror. You know, that was an experience.
Yeah. Were you nervous?
I was too flustered to be nervous, if you know what I mean, Jonathan. Everything was going on. It was, you know, we planned all sorts. We got the big hands and we'd done all that sort of thing. And I didn't have time to think almost. It wasn't until I'm going around on that rolling lap and thinking, I can still picture it in my mind today, thinking, shit, I'm going to have to jump this start because I don't know who's going to be hitting me or whatever. And if you watch the video, I went like hell from word go. And I just remember going into the first corner, bracing my shoulders, and I was like really reaching the steering, thinking, oh my God. I got round the first corner, it's like, oh, we're off. And you know, to be fair, it was brilliant of John to do what he did.
Yeah.
I had a similar thing to the following incident, really, where he'd agreed that you know, he'd get half of any money if I won any. You know, and I agreed that we pay for any damage if we damaged it. And that's why I only did the one race, to be honest, the World Final. I didn't do any heats or anything after that.
Yeah, but actually a great gesture and a great experience for you, absolutely.
Yeah.
There is quite a lot of pictures of you and John, obviously identical cars. You know, I've seen them quite a lot. But one of the most iconic images for me that I remember is you with those big hands that you mentioned. Have you still got them somewhere?
No, unfortunately not. No, they disappeared the year after in Holland. We were rather drunk at the time, as usually happened in Holland, and we'd run out of beer, and we were stuck at the track with nowhere to go. So they were part exchange for a couple of cases of Dutch beer. So somebody in Holland's gotten somewhere, Jonathan.
At the time, it was a good idea, but now maybe you'd like to have kept them.
Yeah, you know, all credit to my dad and my brother Paul. They made them out of chicken wire and paper mache. I think they'd be a bit stinky by now, to be honest. But you know, I was in the garage all week with my mechanics rebuilding the car, and they were all week in the garage making a set of paper mache hands. So, but it's all part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So in your time in Formula One, you were definitely sort of one of the bigger characters. And clearly you enjoyed your racing. When I've been talking to other drivers, they have spoken about the level of commitment needed to be at the top of the sport. Was there ever a time when you thought, do you know what, I want to be that number one in Formula One? Or were you just simply, I just want to enjoy my racing?
Never, ever. You know, I was lucky that I actually led the points for one meeting at Skegness 94 or something like that, or even after a couple of meetings. But no, you know, for me, it was about enjoying it. The only time I ever took it serious was sort of 94, and my good friend Andy Webb, we'd got very friendly with Webby, and he said to me, look, Ian, you know, you could be a proper driver in this job, you know, let's focus, let's concentrate. And I sort of drove how Andy wanted me to drive. I remember it to this day. There was, I think we'd done Skeggy, and then it was on to Boston in the afternoon. I'd won heat and final at Skeggy. Then we'd gone to Boston, I'd won the heat. And I'm walking the final, and Murray Harrison, well, not walking it, but Murray Harrison caught me up. And I refused to move, and he stuck me on a fence post. So no points. And I came off, and Webby was spitting blood, you know, you should have moved over, let him through. And I'm like, Andy, I can't drive like that, you know? I can't be your precise racing driver. It's not. I'm there to like go out, scare myself silly as I'm coming off the corner. You know, I'm that close to the fence, feel the power. So yeah, you know, the commitment as well was too much. You know, I've seen the likes of Frank and what they put in. I could never do that, Jonathan. To me, I needed to earn money more than I needed to race a car.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I was talking to Paul last week, and he said he had to make a very conscious choice that I can go down that route, but the amount of time and effort, do I really want that? And there's other things in my life that I need to be doing, like my business, like my personal life. And it is, isn't it? It's a huge ask.
It's a massive commitment. You know, in a way, I'm different to Paul and Frank and all those lot because I wasn't a second generation racer or anything like that. You know, we were, you know, owned nursing homes and rest homes and stuff like that. You know, Dennis has always been a business entrepreneur, but so we were, you know, it wasn't inbred into us like it was the likes of Paul and everything. But
Yeah.
you know, we raced for the fun. Without mum and dad, I couldn't have done half of what I did. But it's one of those when the fun outweighs, when the pain outweighs the pleasure, it's time to sort of give it up, you know. And when you've got a young family and you're married and whatever, and they want to go on holiday, you've got to make a decision. Do I spend £1,000 on tyres and shockers? Do I spend £1,000 going abroad? And you have to make that decision.
Of course. No, thank you for that. So thinking about when you were jumping into the race car, did you ever have any pre-race rituals, superstitions?
Yeah, I did actually. I always put my left glove on last. Even today, I mean, I did a little teams race last year with the stocks carts, and I always put my left-hand glove on last. Don't know why, but it's just I consciously do it. I strap the belts on, you know, you put them on as you do, but I always, that one goes on first, and then that one just, so yeah, left on last.
No, always. If you'd lost your left glove, that would be terrible.
Oh, nothing worse. I won't go out. Not that it did me any good. It didn't bring me any luck. I still ended up crashing and wrecking myself and putting myself in hospital several times. So, you know, perhaps I should change. Perhaps I should put the left glove on first. Yeah.
Maybe. Try it. If you go back out in your stocks car, you do that. See if it works.
Yeah.
So, 95 to 98, you left Formula One, and you've already mentioned it. You went off to race Rebel. So, why did you have that break in your Formula One career?
I've been chairman of the BSCDA. I was at a very low ebb with the sport, despondent. I'd been punched at the drivers' AGM, believe it or not. And at the time we were involved with Stoke, and I'd done a bit of testing in the Rebels with Hans. And I like the idea of everybody having the same kit. And then it's how good are you as a driver. And to be fair, in the early days of Rebels, it was like that because, you know, I couldn't compete with Nigel Wharton in the F1s, but in the Rebels, I was on a par with him. So, you know, Roger Bromley mentioned it the other week. You know, Roger beat me, brilliant drive to beat me in the Rebels British at Coventry. Yeah. But, you know, he couldn't compete with me in the F1s back in the day. But in the Rebels, same equipment, he could. So that's what particularly appealed to me about the Rebels at the time. And I'd just had enough of F1, you know. Yeah. Being on the committee, being chairman, trying to race, you know, you have people take it out on you on track because they feel that everything that's going wrong in the sport is your fault. You know, Van Weyman had it a lot when he was there years ago. That's why I was a bit of an advocate for, I felt the chairman shouldn't be a racer. You know, I thought, you know, somebody that's involved with the job, and because I actually followed Tim Mann as chairman because Tim was the chairman, and obviously he wasn't a racer, but he was involved with Junior Wayman. But Tim had personal problems, so he had to step down, and that's how I ended up becoming the chairman. But I still think to this day that it's like, you know, I think Pete Folding, I think he will prove to be a brilliant chairman. You know, he's got a lot of involvement, a lot of knowledge, but he's not there racing every weekend. It's not affecting his racing, basically.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, so obviously in the Rebels you really enjoyed it, but then you came back into Formula One. So what made you come back in stock cars again?
I fell out with Hans Kirrimer. the problem, you know, basically the first year I loved it in the Rebels. The second year I was winning everything, and you know, obviously having my own formula now, I can see where Hans was coming from. He didn't want the same person in the head. But to me, you can't try and alter it. And certain things happened, and so I was getting a bit fed up. And then come the penultimate meeting, I was a lap down, and the guy, it was Mark Wharton Eels, who I was battling with the points for. He comes to pass me on the very last lap of the final, and I was a lap down. I took him out, and it basically ended up with a big fallout. Hans trying to ban me, we went to court, all sorts of rubbish. So, you know, it got silly. But and that was why basically I fell out with the rebels, really. You know, don't get me wrong, well, Hans is ill at the minute, but you know, it took us about 12 years before we even spoke to each other again. But you know, at that time, the rebels were a good thing for me. I loved it. I loved the idea and that behind it. But as I say, if one man runs a job and you fall out with him, it's difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you. So you mentioned you were the chairman. So that was 93.
Yes,
yeah. So it's quite a difficult. Yeah, quite a difficult period in the sport, wasn't it? To have the drivers' strike. So why did you take on that role, and did you enjoy it at all?
I actually, I wasn't even on the committee at the time. And what happened was the drivers went on strike, and I actually got asked, believe it or not, by the promoters if I would. A promoter, prominent promoter at the time, said, "Will you come along and try and put some common sense into the job, Ian?" Because I had been on the committee before under Graham Blundell and that. So as I say, I sort of got involved in the committee, wanted to modernise it, introduce the inside line because Derek Holmes had gone and stuff like that. Did I enjoy it? No, not really. It frustrated me a lot because I had a lot of ideas, a lot of things I wanted to do, but when you're ruled by a committee, you know, you can't always do your own thing. So it frustrated me a lot. As there is all the time, there's two factions. There's those that want the sport to go one way, those that want it to go the other. You're sort of in the middle. You know, you've got your own opinions, but you can't necessarily express them because you want to, you know. At that time, I had David Hodgson, you know, who wanted to take the sport to a very professional way. Then I had Mark Gilmore, Brian, who wanted to try and bring it back. There's 9 of you in that room, and you trying to, you know, get it to go forward.
Yeah,
it was a very frustrating time, to be honest, Jonathan. But to me, it needed somebody sort of calming influence at the helm, and that's why I took it on. So, but no, it affected my racing, it affected family life. I committee meetings, but at that time, because you're on with a strike, so to speak, then you know you've got meetings left, right, and centre, and you're not claiming a penny for it, and it's all encompassing. So you know, I enjoy being on the committee, being chairman, possibly not so much.
No, okay, and like you said, you have got and now and back then huge big characters in the sport that kind of want to take it in a certain direction, and to find like a middle ground must have been almost impossible, like you said.
Yeah, it was. You know, it was very difficult. You know, it was interesting listening to Roger the other day. You know, I've had some do's with Roger in the past over the way he wanted the sport to go. You know, because he had no money, and you know, he was, when the A and B class sort of came about, I was heavily involved with that, and you know that was a mockery of the job because you know they got rules where you had your so-called supercars. And then Bobby Burns is on an all-leaf sprung car, and they won't let him go and race with the bees. So why not? Oh, well, he's too good. Well, hang on, that's not about cars. That's not about drivers. So you know, it was just it wasn't a particularly good time, but sort of almost after me. I mean, the things we introduced at the time, the inside weight, the rear weight, and the sportsman tyre, you know, they weren't instant fixes, but for the period shortly after that, 4 years, whatever, the sport was fantastic.
Yes.
But it never sort of came to fruition while I was involved.
Yeah. It's almost future thinking ideas, those, weren't they, that would sort of future proof it, if you like.
Yeah.
Okay. So you talked about there's the committee piece, and you know you've got ideas, and you were frustrated. So do you think Formula One would benefit from almost having a Bernie Ecclestone type figure, a bit similar to yourself in Stocks Carts now, or Hans Kierenmaier in Red Bulls?
Yes, in a way, but that does have its drawback. You know, it would have to be a very special person and the right person, you know, because that person has got to try and do what's best for the drivers as well as what's best for the promoters. You know, over the years, everybody, you know, we've all thought, oh, these promoters, they're having it away, they've had it away, this, that, and that. I've been there, you know, I know the other side. And particularly at times like now, you know, you've got to look at somebody, you know, Dean Woods, for instance. There's some weekends that at this moment in time that he'd have been running 8-10 meetings.
Yeah.
You know, and at the moment, nothing. So, you know, Steve Reese is another, you know, they've got all of them, to be fair, are really, really struggling at the time, at this moment, as are the drivers. But to have one person run it, I don't think you could get agreement from both sides. I think the way that they worked, I mean, ideally, yeah, it would be the perfect way to do it, but I just don't think it would happen. You know, I don't think there'd be enough trust there from both sides. They both think that he was on the take or she was on the take.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it would be, you know, ideal world, but I don't think it would ever happen, Jonathan.
Okay. So you mentioned about being a promoter. So was that a period that you particularly enjoyed in the sport? Was it something that you'd maybe go back to in the future, or is it something actually I've done that?
Well, I've blown my money there. Yeah, we did enjoy it. There was a lot of negatives to it, you know. And it wasn't just us. You know, we were in partnership. Started off with Vince Moody and Tim Mann, and then it was just Dennis and Tim basically. But they put the money where the mouth was. You know, they did incentives. We had 70 odd cars at one meeting. Every driver got paid an extra tenner if they did the parade lap. It was all sponsored money, but it was all to try and promote. It got the drivers, but no punters. You know, the punters still didn't come. So would I do it again? Over 10 years I've been involved in stocks carts, I've tried to buy 3 tracks. Not necessarily because I want to promote Formula Ones or whatever, but I sort of wanted to have a home base for stock carts. I had ideas of how I wanted things to do. You know, I even, you know, a short while ago, I was in discussions with another promoter about trying to take on Birmingham Wheels to save it. You know, that was nothing done behind Dean's back. Dean had said he didn't want to do it, and we looked at it, and it just wasn't viable. So I've been there, done it. I enjoyed it while we did it, but the biggest problem was we lived in York. The track was at Stoke. We didn't own it. You know, we were only renting it. A lot of other stuff going on. You know, but I would never say never. But my plan is to try and get out of motor racing, and you know, my plan was to have sold stock cars now and be going and living abroad. But it's looks like I'm here for a little bit longer.
Yeah, a little bit. So you mentioned about you tried to buy 3 tracks, you know, on the back of being involved with stocks cars or owning stocks cars. You know, was it that you couldn't get them because they weren't available, or that you couldn't get planning permission? Because people talk about we need new tracks. Is it really that difficult to get them on board?
One of the, I mean, to be honest, one of them, the track wasn't for sale, but I made an offer to the promoter at the time. We had a meeting. I went across to see him, and we had a meeting, and me and my brother Paul put in an offer, which he sort of half considered and then turned down. I tried to buy Buxton Speedway track, not to run Formula Ones or whatever, but literally just to run the karts, because we used to run the karts there.
Yeah.
But a lot of what people don't see with it is, you know, and it's going to come more to the fore, it's all the health and safety stuff, you know, the insurances, the track inspections. As much as people knock the ORC as, you know, this club or whatever, the ORC, BriSCA, both of those organisations, they are essential for us. You know, as the Formula Ones and other formulas, you know, particularly with what's going on now after the Colin North incident, etc. So there's a lot more to it. And you know, I was very seriously, I'd spoken to Matt and Bat and Barry Watson about, you know, possibility of opening up Buxton Speedway track for stocks cars. I didn't want to run any other formulas there or anything like that. But it wouldn't happen with that. But as far as other tracks, there's a lot of financial involved and a lot of financial risk, you know. And I'm sad to say that the crowds just aren't what they were.
No.
So the problem is stock cars takes over your life and it makes you make stupid decisions, you know, and spend money that when you look at it as a pure hard businessman, you would never in your life look at the stock car meeting. So, you know, really, I would never say never, but it would have to be the right thing, Jonathan.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Just going back to your stock car racing a little while. So finished in '98, then 2012 he came back for a one-off season. So why? What happened? Was it too much to drink one night? You thought, that's it, I'm doing stock cars again.
Not far wrong. No, basically what happened was I sold what was my stock cars transport. I had a big double-deck Scania at the time. And I sold it to Paul Montague, who was tied up with Tony Smith and Co. And part of the deal was he said to me, "Oh, you can have a go in my car at Christmas at Coventry." So I thought, yeah, why not? So anyway, Monty blew his car up. So Tony Smith kindly offered to lend me his car. So I said, yeah, go on, we'll go. So anyway, we went to Coventry, went out. I rolled a car, I hit the fence, I nearly climbed out. There's a video of me online climbing up the fence all the way down the straight. Did it all and thought no more of it. Then all of a sudden, there's this thing called Facebook. And I start getting things pinging up on Facebook. Oh, great to see you racing again, Ian. Are you coming back? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? And I was like, no, too old, you know, too old and don't want to spend any money. Well, if you ever come back, I'd sponsor you. And honestly, Jonathan, there was like a momentum that built from it. And I had, for the first time ever in my racing career, I had people offering money to race. And I just sat down and looked at it and I thought, right, well, I'll tell you what, I'll set a budget of 15 grand to buy a car. And if I can raise the sponsorship to do that, we'll do it. So I sort of put out that, if we could get enough sponsorship, then we'd do it. Next thing, somebody's gone out, whatever the car is, I'll give you half. Like, right, fair enough. And then I had somebody else who, well, I'll pay you diesel. So I'm like, well, you know, I'll give you 200. Another person, I'll give you £200 a meeting. So all of a sudden, I was getting all this money coming from, and it was all through social media. So I thought, right, so reset up the Barmy Army and everything, and basically got offered a lot of money by a lot of people to have a go. So we had a go, and I'll be honest, at the end of this, I was terrible. I had a lot of car problems, but I was terrible. I can't drive the way they drive now. But the one thing that we did was at the end of the year, I had a sponsors day at Birmingham Wheels, and anybody could give me over 150 quid, I invited along. And I had stock cars there, the F1 two-seaters, Rebels, Formula 2, and my F1. All those people came along and we had it. I had the track for a day. That probably cost me 1,500 quid, but probably earned me. Well, every single sponsor wanted to go again, and it would be 30 grand for taken. But body wouldn't do it. That's it.
Brilliant. That's a great story. It's a fantastic story. So you mentioned about you couldn't drive it like they were driving it now. So what was the biggest difference that you found from the sort of 10-year gap that you had?
For starters, the nerf rails are bigger than the front bumpers we used to run. When I sent the car up to Frank's to get it bumpered and nerfed when I first bought it, I went up there to have a look at it. It's got 2B1 box section on its side as nerf rails, and I'm like, Frank. I said, Ian, that's how it is. The biggest difference to me, Jonathan, was back in the day when I raced early, you know, the 80s and early 90s, there was a lot of front to back contact. What I didn't like was this, particularly on shale, where they literally throw it up the inside here and flip the wheels as you're coming out the bend, particularly places like Bellevue and Sheffield. That to me is not, I don't know, it's dirty driving and high class. And it isn't, it's how people have been brought up now, but that was the biggest difference I noticed. And the other thing I found was that the tyres, they were gripping, gone. Whereas before you could always feel like, oh, we're on the edge here, we're on the edge, with what were the Goodyears at the time.
So,
grip, oh, it's gone. And, you know, that was the biggest difference. But it was just coming out the corner and flicking the front end. I was like spitting blood, honestly, when people did it. I wasn't quick enough to catch them up and give them it again. So, if you're going to do it, let me see you in the mirror and do me from the, that's it.
Yeah. That people do say that it's changed. The driving style has changed now more potentially, because of King's Lynn, where you can go up against the wall and you can bounce off it, and
the fences, outdoor fences. A lot of people say, "Oh, I don't like Sheffield," but that's what we raced against. We had Acres, Hartlepool. Look at Hartlepool, post and wire, and what's happened with the style of track now, like you say. I mean, that classic thing a few years ago where Mick Sorder just kept it planted and rode the wall all the way around the house. I mean, brilliant, but you wouldn't have done that with a post and wire, would he?
It wasn't. Absolutely not. Okay, best and worst thing about Formula One stock cars?
The best thing, it's got to be the network of people you get to know, the drivers. Like I say, love them or hate them, they'll always help you out, Many years ago, we broke down on our way to Holland in the bus, and we were down the A1 near Peterborough somewhere. And all it took was a phone call. Eric Graveling dragged him out of bed at 2 o'clock in the morning. And, out he come with his little clapped out old Peugeot with Shep sat next to him, a Conrod for an AEC, And even now, my two lads, they've got a tremendous network of friends throughout the country where they can go and stay. And, that is the beauty. That and the power, of them motors. That is a good thing. The bad thing is the time and the money.
Yeah,
it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of money. And having and balancing that. If you haven't got sponsorship and you're paying for it yourself, you've got to balance. Do I spend that on the house? Do I do that? So the good thing is, as I say, the people, the network of people, the drivers, etc. But the bad thing is definitely time and the money.
Yeah, and the money. Brilliant. So, thinking about your stock car career, is there one memorable moment that stands out? So, obviously, we've talked about the world final, but is there anything else that really stands out? I'm super proud of
that. To be honest, I don't think so. Probably when we debuted the new lightweight tarmac car in Holland, and I came from the back, and I was actually up to third, challenging for third when it threw a fan belt, and I caught Lundy. I actually hit Lundy going into the bend, and it threw the fan belt, and I think Lundy ended up second that year. And then in the next race, I was winning it until 2 laps to go, and we'd got air in the brakes because we'd never tested the car, so I couldn't brake as late as I wanted. So I really enjoyed that. I used to do well in the British events. I was pole at Skegness one year. Even on my comeback year, I ended up with a decent position for the final. But no, there's nothing I enjoyed it, Jonathan, and we enjoyed it as a family. It kept us together. I would have never seen my eldest brother and my youngest brother and whatever if we didn't go racing on a weekend. So it was just the whole thing we loved and still do.
Yeah, absolutely. You've mentioned John Lund a few times. I thought there was an unwritten rule in stock cars you couldn't hit John Lund anymore. Do you know? I don't know. Is that?
I'll tell you what. I watched him at the last Bellevue last year, and he was in the thick of it. Was old John. It's one of them. It's difficult, isn't it? It's like I remember old Frank going down to Blue Top, and you think Frankie Wayman Senior a Blue Top, same as with John. But if they're enjoying it, and on his day, John can still mix it. It's hard driver is John. People don't realise. You look at him and he looks like he's on his Sunday afternoon drive, but I've seen him with the likes of Folding and Co. back in the day. He's hard as nails, is John. But as long as he's still enjoying it, then why not?
When I did an interview with Mick Sorder at Dinner Dance, I asked him who's the hardest driver he's come across. Mick Sorder, kind of, really hard driver, if you like. And he said John Lund. He said he'd come across him at Bellevue. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know whether to hit him or not. He was just, what do you do?
I think, but it's got to the stage now, like with John, it's like, do you want to hit him? Because it's Sir John. It's almost, do you want? I mean, you talk about hard drivers, people that I raced with. Stuart was a hard driver. I always felt he was very fair. But, you know, Tilly, Burnsy, you know, I buried Bobby Burns and lived to tell the tale sort of thing. So, you know, Bobby was one scary, scary bloke. So, you know, there are hard drivers, but to me, you see, Kev Smith, I always got on great with Kev, and I never ever had a do with Kev. But to me, I didn't like his style particularly because anybody can just keep the foot down and bury somebody, you know. But to do them and carry on racing, that's when it's class, you know.
Yeah.
And John could do that, as could Peter, you know, as could a few others.
Yeah, brilliant. And you buried Bobby Burns. I don't know what you were thinking that day.
I tell you what, I did it. I mean, it was at Long Eaton, and I tried going up the inside of him a couple of times, and he chopped me up, and I thought, right, he was in a Bashford car, and he was struggling with it like mad. And I stuck him in the pit gate, and I went in with him, and I was sort of looking around, and I looked across, and he just sat there like that. And he sticks it in reverse and sets off, and I thought, I'm getting out of this car, because he's going to come round, and he's going to ram straight into it. So I jumps over the fence, and by that time his mechanic Stevie's there, Stevie Houghton, and Stevie's like, top of the list, Ian, top of the list. He's like, oh shit. But to be fair, he never got me back. He just intimidated me all the time. So, but he never ever did me, did Bob. And I ended up lending him an engine for the Odsal World Final. So yeah.
So you were scared. You had to give it him. You said, of course.
Oh, but after I'd done, well, the red mist comes down, and then afterwards you're like, what have I actually done? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the only time I was genuinely concerned that this is going to come back big time.
So we've done your scariest moment in stock cars. So what's your funniest moment in stock cars?
Oh, half of them I couldn't repeat on here, really. Now, are we talking at the track, or are we talking with stock car people away from the track? We've had some funny moments you know, when we used to do like the overnighters from Skeggy to Middleton or stuff like that, and we'd get to Middleton and try and get in, because they had a nightclub there back then, and you know, we'd try and get in, and we couldn't get in, but my younger brother and his mate who were 14, they were in there boogieing away all night. One of the funniest things that happened really was we had a lads' holiday away to Tenerife. There was my lot, Paul Harrison's lot, Ian Holden, and some of Warren Hunter's lot, and we all went away to Tenerife, and we had an absolute ball. But anyway, myself, Paul Harrison, and Ian Holden, we sort of got friendly with some girls and whatever, and we decided to go down the beach to do a bit of skinny dipping, etc. And the laugh was they all took the mickey out of me, because they're all there in the Levi 501s and the Calvin Kleins and this, and I've got my Georges from Asda t-shirt on and jeans and everything. So we're skinny, we're off in the sea messing about, come back to his clothes, and all their stuff's gone, and there's just mine. It's my Asda jeans, they've looked at them and gone, no, we're not having them. So the trouble was, the hotel was like 8 miles away. So really? Harrison and Ian Holden, bollock naked, and they're behind a wall, and I'm stood there stopping a taxi because I'm dressed. I stopped the taxi. These two naked come running out. Taxi driver's like, we're not having any of that. So that was a cracking holiday, was that we had. But you know, there's been loads, Jonathan. There's so many. You know, I mentioned briefly the one about Eric Gravelin when we rebored an engine and put a piston and conrod in it at the side of the road and sent to Holland. There were loads of them.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm absolutely sure.
Skeggy double headers, you know, watching Paul Harrison try and jump the dike and ending up in it, and how he didn't get septicemia, I have no idea. So, no, we've had some great times, and you know, that's what we've tried to redo in stocks cars, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think, and like you say, it comes back to that. You're doing it for the fun and enjoyment of the people that are there as well, and you make great friends for life, don't you? From
absolutely. Stock you know, the social side. The social side in Formula One's, you know, I'm not in it, so to speak. So I don't really. I mean, I look at the young kids, the Sorders, the Sargents, and all these. What, and they seem to be having a ball, which we did, you know. But the world's a different place now, you know. When I think of the stuff we used to do, I remember pushing Pete Folding up the M1 motorway at 1 o'clock in the morning he was in his Toyota Hilux and I was in my Peugeot, and I'd crept up behind him and just suddenly started pushing him, you know, with my lights off. And, you know, God, you get locked up for it now. But it's stuff we could do back then,
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Ian. Bit of a random question, but considering what you've been up to during the lockdown, do you think you could survive in the wilderness for a month on your own?
On my own?
Yeah.
I like, well, I say I like company. I like certain people's company. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I could hack it, Jonathan. You know, it's I've always been pretty. I can be self-sufficient. When you've got somebody there who's willing to do things for you, you'll let them, won't you? But
Yeah.
I could hack it. I'm pretty certain. In fact, it might be quite blissful.
Yeah, it was potentially. You had two fantastic ideas that were designed to promote and better the sport. One of them was the driving school. So can you explain what that was, and also whether you think it's something the stock cars could do with at the moment?
It was just one of my harebrained schemes. The thing is, I saw a lot of people wanted to have a go, but were scared to go out with 30 other lunatics on track, which, you know, you can't blame them. So I sort of thought, well, why not? I used to hire out a car all the time. My shale car, I used to hire it out on a Sunday. I'd race it on Saturday, and 9 times out of 10, if it was in one piece, we'd hire it out on the Sunday. That's what paid for me racing. So I had the cars, and I just thought, I'm sure these people would love to have a go in a car, but not in a race.
Yeah.
And so I had a word with John Haynes, who was the promoter at Northampton at the time, and he thought it was a brilliant idea. And so basically what you did is, I can't remember how much it wasn't a lot of money, but you paid us a certain amount of money. You came along, we gave you a talk about the car. We had my car there, my tarmac car. We gave you a talk about the car. We'd go in the classroom. We'd talk about lines, this, that, the other, how to drive the car. We'd then divide them into 2 groups. And group 1 would drive. We had 2 cars. Jeff Nichols, we hired a car off. He had a spare car. So first group would go out in my car, which was set a certain way. And the other group would go out in his. As one came off, the other went on, etc. And then we'd have a stop for a spot of lunch, then we'd swap. So if you'd been in Jeff's car, you now went in mine. Then we go back into the classroom and we talk about the differences in the car and how they're braking. So it was very good. And a lot of people, it was a good thing for the sport. The likes of Mike Ashcroft, a guy called John Walker, who's no longer
Yeah.
John Walker. There's a lot of people came to those driving schools, then took the next step to hire a car off me for the hire car and go on and race. So it was a good thing. And at the time, what we did, which was really good, was the management board decided at that time that it was too much for a kid to jump from a Mini into a 600 brake horsepower Formula 1. And therefore, they have the 5 laps now, don't they?
Yeah.
You have to do. Well, back then, you had to do a driving school, and I had to say yay or nay whether you were good enough.
Okay.
So it was used for that as well. So yeah, it was a good thing. I love doing that, and I met some great people in it, and you know, we had some good times. Only ever failed one person, so you know, it was good.
Okay, because I think it is, like I say, it's quite difficult from if you're kind of outside the sport to almost come into Formula 1 stock cars. You know, it tends to be sort of sons of drivers and relatives, etc. So, you know, I think it's quite a good idea potentially to help people get into the sport and show them what it is all about.
Yeah, I think, you know, almost like practice days are a good thing to give people a chance, because, you know, those blokes out there, they're serious. Yeah, they don't deliberately go out and hit a novice or whatever, but there are times when a car might be doing 25, 30 mile an hour less than a top man, and he's no choice but to put somebody into him or vice versa. You know, it's a scary place to be, really.
Absolutely. So alongside the driving school, you did the 2-seater with Frank Raymond Jr. So, you know, the first one that's ever been built. So where did that come from? Where did the idea come from?
Another of my hairbrain. It came about because of the McLaren F1. They built one, and I saw that and I thought, you know what? Wouldn't that be brilliant to go around and have a passenger? take somebody around. And I spoke to Tim Mann about it, and Tim was like, "Oh yeah, count me in." Because although myself and Frank built the cars, and Tony Burkitt from New Zealand and a couple of the Kiwis that were across, we all built the cars. But it was Tim and I that basically financed it. Frank did the work. Frank's input was the labour, etc. Tim and I supplied the cars, the parts, etc., etc. So we built the very first one, which we debuted at the practice session before World Final, and it was a toss of the coin for I took Frank out or Frank took me out. Anyway, he won and he took me out. And but I think I scared him more than he scared me, because he was like, "Brake, Ian, brake." I'm like, "No, not yet, Frank." But I'll tell you what, they are super. They were brilliant to drive. They were brilliant fun. I still do. Well, I mean, Neil Fittenbaum off me. He doesn't use them very much. He did an event up at Tummonby near Scarborough 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we were doing rides then, and I still love doing it. It was brilliant. We had some real fun with them. But problem was they're an expensive tool, and to try and get to make money out of them was very difficult. So not one of my better financial decisions.
Right. Okay. I was going to say, were they a success? So that was kind of one of my questions. Did you think that? I guess successful in promoting the sport, but financially for you, not so much.
Financially, not, because when you look at it, Jonathan, realistically, you've got to hire a venue, which 300 quid a time, say. Yeah. I would never do. I had proper insurance, which was 300 quid for the day. So you're at 600 quid before you even start. You're on 200 quid with the diesel to get a car there. Well, obviously Frank had one, I had one. So you're then on 400. So you're at 1,000 quid before you've turned a wheel, and you're charging 50 quid a time. So that's 20 people at 50 quid a time before you've made a penny. Yeah. So financially, no. Fun-wise, best fun we've ever had. Knocking 7 bells out of each other. I remember watching Speaky and Frank up at Cowden Beat, and I was like, just mad.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you. I guess fans who are newer to the sport know you as the owner of Stocks Cars, maybe don't know so much about your previous racing career in Formula Ones. So why did you make the decision to buy Stock Cars? It's a great budget entry formula, it gets anybody out on track. So why did you buy it? What was your vision for Stocks Cars?
I must admit, when you asked me to do this, I was quite surprised, thinking who wants to speak. Nobody knows me. Well, the newer people don't know, but they know me as Mr. Stocks Cars. The reason I bought Stocks Cars was, at the time, I got 2 lads that wanted to race. I didn't want them to do BriSCA Minis because the conceived thing at the time was too expensive. Whether they were or not, I never went that far down the road. But speaking to people, they're too expensive, too much commitment, too much travelling, this, that, and the other. So we actually looked at going into grass tracking, autograss, which I'd never even seen. But we've got 4 tracks within an hour's drive from here. So I didn't have to spend a load of time in the garage. You could nip up on a Sunday morning, go and race, or so I thought. At the end of the day, I ended up with 2 cars that probably I could have bought 2 mini stocks with. But so I was looking for something for my lads to do, and I saw a video online of the stock carts up at Crimond, in-car footage. And I just thought, these are mad. They're absolutely mad. So, long story short, we found out who was running them. It was all in disarray, this, that, and the other. And I just thought, no, it's through, as I mentioned earlier, I was frustrated on the BSCDA committee. And I thought, if I can get a formula similar to what Hans has done, and take my hat off to him, you live or fall by your decisions. I've got nobody telling me what I do, within reason. I've got to comply with rules and regulations as everybody else does. But as far as the formula and the development of it, it lives or falls by my decisions. And that part of it, call me control freak, call me what you want. That part of it I love. And we have probably one of the best social sides, even better than Formula One sometimes. If you ask people like Matt Watson, when we go up to Buxton for a double header, it's crazy. But it's about the fun. And the stocks carts, we know what they are. We take them what they are.
Yeah.
To me, they're the worst thing I've ever given in my life. But when you're 6 inches off the floor, you've got 5, 6, 7 carts close around you down the straight. It's adrenaline, and you see that same rush. And Jonathan, you've raced it. It's cheap.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it's been good. I look at people. James Bailey, Roger Bailey race F1s. They came to the stocks. Look at John Brown in the V8s. He's come via stocks carts. You look at the Thackerers in the F2s, stocks carts. So it's a great feeder formula for youngsters. It's also a good formula for those who've had a racing career and just want a bit of fun on track. So it works that way for them. And then those who, it's what they can afford. A lot of our drivers are BriSCA fans. A lot of the people. The stock car fans, you'll see them at a lot of BriSCA meetings if we're not racing. So we've got a great bunch, and I actually get more pleasure out of watching the kids race, seeing these kids develop from 10-year-old kids up to now racing Formula Ones over the past 10 years. Brilliant. And I do love it. Yeah, it's a business. I earn a couple of quid. We don't earn fortunes, but I've always said it's a business, and we're there to try and make money. But it's about enjoying it, and I find we've got a good link with the micro F2s, which I think again is a brilliant formula, which Jason and Claire Holden have a lot of control over.
Yeah.
And what people have got to realise is that it's people like us that are setting these kids, obviously as well as the parents, but we're setting these kids up for life. We're teaching them the rights and wrongs. We're teaching them rules, discipline, stuff like that. And so there's quite a lot of responsibility with it on the junior side. But as I said, when you see them mature, it's brilliant. So I bought it basically because I couldn't find out else for the kids to race that I could afford.
That's a very long answer, but that's the short of it. No, it's brilliant. That's brilliant, and it's doing really well, like you say. It's a great formula. So all credits here. Yeah. So I guess in a similar kind of vein, and you also got a vested interest in your own formula. A lot of debate on the internet at the moment about, are we going to have a season this year? What does that look like? What's your view?
For me, I'd rather not, to be honest, Jonathan. I think we've got to try and have some sort of a season so people can understand what the new norm is going to be. But like I touched on earlier, the promoters. How can a promoter open a stadium, hopefully get 700-800 people in there, make them socially distanced without health and safety coming along and saying you're doing this, you're doing that wrong, you're doing the other wrong, here's a fine, blah, blah, blah. I read the ORC statement that they've put out to say that, they're going to attempt to do practicing at certain places. It will be driver plus one only due to social distancing, etc. And then you've got people spouting off going, oh, God, what's the point if I can't come with my mate or this or that? But it's what's got to be. So I think there's got to be some racing so we can get used to the new norm. But to me, I'd just like to see it all start again next year, to be honest, and which is financially suicidal to me because I'm losing money every week when we're not racing. But to me, I just think, the practice days are good. I don't think a promoter could financially viably run an F1 meeting.
No. Okay. Thank you for that. I think like you say, what people are struggling with is the new norm. I mean, this time last year, you'd never dream of queuing up to go in a supermarket, but now that's accepted that when you go to a supermarket, you have to queue up to go in and you have to walk a certain way. And stock cars has maybe got to adapt a little bit, certainly in the short term, to enable it to kind of get going. And people need to accept it is going to be a bit different. So
I think there's a lot more stuff along the lines with that, particularly when you're talking, we're crying out for new tracks. Everybody says, this, that, and the other, but noise is a big thing. And I remember I was involved when they first introduced silencers, and I was one. I'm not running silencers. Well, you've got a choice. You run them or you don't have a car. And I think personally that's another thing that's going to come along, like they do in Holland. They run double silencers. I think it's the only way you're going to be able to get into places that there's a possibility of racing at, where you're not stuck out in, but even like Buxton has noise issues, as daft as it sounds, in the middle of nowhere. So, you know, there's a lot of things I think within the sport, small things, that are going to have to change for it to continue and for it to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you. Last week, I asked Paul Harrison a question around who we'd like to self-isolate with, and he chose you.
He did, yeah.
You're one of the people. So I would ask you the same question, but don't feel under any obligation to say Paul Harrison, right? So we can have that disclaimer first. So you're gonna, you can choose.
Watching these interviews, Jonathan, right? And I can't believe these drivers. There's something wrong with them, because I thought if he asked me that, and I thought I know exactly. I'll have Shannon Ellis, Lisa Arter, and Jamie. You know, seriously. Because what is it? It's a past, a present, and another formula in it or something.
Yes, yeah, that's it.
So my past would definitely be Stuart Smith. You know, he was my hero as a kid, and I was fortunate enough to spend some crazy nights at dinner dances and stuff with Stuart, and some time in Holland. You know, he was brilliant with Stuart when you got him right. He was a different character when he was racing, you know, but away from the track, we had doing the boss pantomimes and that. God alive, it was unbelievable. So yeah, I definitely have Stuart. And it would be Paul Harrison, believe it. There's a love in between me and Paul, but it would be Paul, because he's a laugh whenever we do anything. You know, he was guest of honour at the Stocks Carts a couple of years ago. What a night we had, because he likes to drink, as does Stuart, same as myself. So you know, it would actually be Rubber. I thought about a few others, you know, but it would be Rubber. From another formula, I would have said Gordon Moody, because he's a proper party animal. We've had some in LA's and the boathouse at Skegness, but the only trouble with Gordon's I can't understand the word he bloody says.
Especially when he's on a drink, it gets a thicker accent.
So who would I pick? To be honest, I'd actually probably pick somebody from Stocks Carts, and there's a couple in Stocks Carts. It would either be, well, he's not really a driver. Well, he's driven a stock car, but he's kids race, which would be Russell Andrews, because he can do a tipple. But a man that you know, none of these lot will know, but a guy called Graham Wheat. Now, Graham is a legend within the Stocks Carts, and you know, on our double headers and our nights out and everything, he drinks with the best of them. So yeah, it would be Wheaty from the Stocks Carts as another formula. It would be Rubber from current drivers, and it would be Stu Smith Senior from the old timers.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Great answer. Great answer. And you can message Paul afterwards and say, I chose you, Paul. I chose you.
Yeah.
Okay. My final question for you, Ian. Your top 3 drivers of all time.
Stuart, Senior, obviously, without question. Fantastic. Just following on from him, it will be close between Frankie and Andrew, to be honest, but Frankie Jr., I think purely because I've put him in, he's borrowed cars off me in the past as Frank several times that are nailed, and he's just driven the backside of them. I think Andrew is a superb driver. It's almost like a Senna and Prost. I think Andrew Smith is more a Prost and Frankie is more a Senna. So, you know, which then sounds contradictory when I say that I'd go Frankie second, but I wouldn't put Andrew in third. Third place, I would actually, I mean, there's Willie, there's loads of them, but I would actually go for Peter Falding.
Okay.
I highly rate Peter. I still do. You know, he was a good, hard, no-nonsense driver. Quite selfish at times in a way. You know, no two ways about it, but he could drive, good Peter. It's just some people you like to watch. And if I wasn't racing, I'd love to watch Peter dead out the cab. So, yeah, I think it would be Peter in third, Frankie second, and the Maestro number 1.
Brilliant. A great top 3. A great top 3, Ian. Ian, I could genuinely talk to you all evening. It's been so enjoyable. Thank you very much for your time tonight. Before we go, is there anything you'd like to add before we disappear?
No, I just hope that, you know, we can all get back racing at some point. I don't want to be, you know, The fans are a great bunch of people that we've got in stock car racing. You know, I hope that when we come back, they can be flexible enough to understand some of the things that have got to happen within the sport. And you know, just we all want to go racing, don't we, Jonathan? At the end of the day, but to do that, we're going to have to change. So that's about it.
Ian, thank you so much for that. And you know, fingers crossed we see you at a track this year, maybe. All right. Cheers, Ian.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks a lot. Bye bye.